Eric on 4. Eric, thanks for waiting in St. Louis, which is not far from my high school.
Yeah.
Are you still there, Eric?
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
You're on with Jen and Matt?
Hi. I've been a former Christian for a few years, and right now I'm just kind of struggling with one or two remaining beliefs, like struggling with
Okay.
the idea of whether I should continue.
What do you mean when you say whether you should continue?
Believing.
Okay.
Like whether these are things that, yeah.
But you said it says you're an atheist?
Yes.
Okay. How can you continue to believe if you're an atheist? Because, I mean, I understand you have some questions about, like, the soul or, some supernatural thing.
Right.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't believe that there is a God.
Okay.
And there are one or two remaining beliefs that I haven't really taken the time until now to start looking at. So no God, but
Maybe no God, but maybe other things.
Supernatural.
So
Okay.
sure,
Yeah.
pick one and let's talk about it.
Some sort of spirit or soul or something that continues after death. It would. I know if it is something that exists, it's really pared down from what people will typically mean by spirit or soul. It can't be responsible for our personality or our memories. Those are pretty demonstrably physical.
Can I ask something?
Phenomena. Yes.
So it seems to me, having done this a lot, that you're starting with like baggage of beliefs and you've cut out portions of it. When you say there may be something like this, but it's not what people talk about. Wouldn't the right position to start with be, okay, let me define this, and is there some reason to believe that it's likely to be true? Because if you just start with,
okay.
I believe a soul, but it's not this, and it's not this, and it's not this, and it's not this, it seems like you're just hanging on to something. And if it turns out that you eliminate all the things it can't be, what has that told you about what it can be? And how would you determine whether or not that is?
Okay, I can appreciate that question, and yes, that does make sense.
So I have a question for you, and that is, why is it that you are still hanging on to these kind of supernatural beliefs?
Well, I think part of it is part of it may just be habit, and I'm used to believing. Part of it, I think, is the idea that if this is just a vague tentative belief in some vague spirit or soul or afterlife that doesn't have any effect on this existence, doesn't have effect on decision making, does it matter if I believe in it?
Well, probably not. But the reason that most people give for clinging to, and I probably shouldn't use the word clinging to, that kind of has a negative connotation, but people hang on to these supernatural beliefs most often because they have a fear of dying.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's something that applies to you or not, but that's typically what is going on when people hang on to these supernatural beliefs. They want to believe that some part of them continues even after their physical death. And so I think that if that's what's happening here, it'd be important for you to deal with that, because fear is a pretty bad basis for decision making. And even though you're saying, okay, this belief doesn't have any impact on, how I live my life or anything like that, it might. I mean,
so as far as the does it matter, sorry, I think, even though the intuitive answer is no, and that's probably why I haven't looked at it for this long. I think you're right that we can't be sure. It really doesn't affect things. Beliefs do affect how we think and how we make decisions, even if it's subconsciously. And a more explicit example would be, I think, where are we going to, if we're looking for explanations for things, where are we going to spend our energy and time and effort looking? So right now, we know in the outer solar system, the objects that we're finding with elliptical orbits all tend to point in a single direction. And one proposal to explain why they all point in that direction is that there's another planet that we haven't yet discovered. Then its orbit, its gravity, its orbit affects these other orbits.
okay.
We haven't confirmed that. It'll need time and effort, and we'll need to look for it before it's confirmed. We could make another proposal that there's a space dragon that's eating up any of the objects that don't line up in that direction. That hasn't been confirmed. It hasn't been necessarily disproven.
Well, actually, we could demonstrate that.
We know that things like planets exist. We know that their gravity affects their orbits, and their gravity affect other objects in the solar system in certain ways. And so are we going to spend telescope time and money and effort looking where we would expect to see this additional planet, or where we would expect to see the space dragon?
Okay. What does this have to do with the supernatural stuff you believe in?
So if we think that there are some supernatural phenomena, then that may affect how likely we are to accept other supernatural explanations.
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have any way to investigate and confirm the supernatural at all?
No.
Okay. So if there's something that we have no way to investigate or confirm, then belief can never be rationally justified, right?
Right.
Thus endeth the lesson.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't mean that it's not. It doesn't mean the supernatural isn't real. At such time as we could investigate and confirm the supernatural, if it demonstrated to be reasonable to believe, then of course you'd be reasonably justified. But until that changes, if we're in agreement that you can't investigate this and you can't confirm it, and that means that rational belief can't be justified, then you can't be holding a rational belief, which means you have to acknowledge that you're holding an irrational belief. Doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means that you're not being rational. So the thing is, do we actually care more about what's true than whether or not something is comforting?
Which gets to my point of, maybe need to examine why it is you are still holding on to some of these beliefs.
Right.
I would take that and sit with it, because so we're almost out of time, and there's one more call that I want to get to that kind of ties to this just a little bit. So think on that, and by all means, call us back, and we wish you luck kind of evaluating these things. And you can also call Talk Heathen or any of the other, or well, I guess not any of the other shows, because I don't know this is so much a parenting thing, but it might be. But the key for me is real simple. I don't have to prove that there's no God, prove that there's nothing supernatural. I don't have to assert that there's no God or that there's nothing supernatural. My position is I'm not convinced there's a God, and I'm not convinced that there's anything supernatural. And I am convinced that we are currently, and perhaps forever, in a state where we couldn't confirm the supernatural. And as long as that remains the case, I cannot be rationally justified in believing it. And I don't want to believe things that I don't have a rational justification for. I'm not always going to get that right. We're going to make mistakes. But to me, the notion of a soul is the single most dead concept in all of theology. It's the most obviously not true thing. But even if we narrowed it down to, well, maybe there's some kind of afterlife thing, it's on par with, well, maybe my socks are lucky. And there may, in fact, be better or as good evidence for my socks are lucky as there is for there's an afterlife. And until I have some method that allows me to reach a rational conclusion that is true, I can no more believe that there's an afterlife than I can that my socks are lucky.
Yeah, and honestly, I think I really was just at the point where I needed to discuss it with someone.
Cool.
And
we're grateful you did that. We're grateful you did that here, and call us back. I want to try and get to one more call before we go on. Thank you so much, Eric. Appreciate it.
Bye.